Now, why does STEM identity matter? And I think it's a really good question because you could ask yourself, well, maybe they just don't like science. But it does matter, especially in the day and age we're in, considering that everything is becoming more and more technological. So, a STEM identity or lack thereof, it affects the perceptions of students' educational experiences at a very young age. It gives them a perspective on the reality that they can have. So, not having that STEM identity, not feeling related to science, not seeing in the textbook anyone that looks like you, it creates a perspective of reality that removes you from the STEM world because you're literally not in it. You don't see yourself in it in TV shows, in media, and that bias does have an effect on youth. So it affects their actual engagement in school. And I think this is a really interesting uh, study that they did. So this was in Ontario, and this was the perspectives of Black children who wanted to have university degrees. 94% of them wanted to get university degrees, but only 60% of these youth actually believed that they would get a degree, which is such a disparity. And it is quite sad to hear because it means even before you've gotten there, even before you've gotten to the space where you can even think of going to university, you don't think you'll get there. And that's part of why these ideas, these STEM identities matter because they do create a reality for these kids. And that's why I think the next study is even more fascinating. It shows the amount of students that actually did apply to universities and colleges. I think one of the more important ones here is that 43% of students of Black youth simply did not apply. And if you compare that to other racialized students or white students, it's such a high number. That means almost half, or not almost half, 43% of these students aren't even trying. And it does correlate with their perspectives. If only 60% of these youth actually believe that they'll get and obtain a university degree out of 93, it actually does make sense that 43% don't apply because about that number didn't even believe they could get it. So their STEM identities, their identities of how they see themselves in educational experiences literally leads to not just lack of enrollment, but they don't even apply, which if you don't apply, you'll never even get into any school. So it's just interesting to see how it moves into their real lives and it becomes a reality.
You've had a long career of teaching in a large school board in a large city with very diverse students, right?
Yes.
Indigenous and non-Indigenous. So
Yep.
maybe can you share a little bit about your experience and how you align Indigenous content and knowledge within the curriculum and what that's like navigating and
Right.
advocating within such a large school board?
Absolutely. Well, it's important to understand, in the Catholic School Board, particularly in the area that I work in, 95% of our families are immigrated from other parts of the world. So, primarily Africa, specifically Nigeria, the Caribbean islands, India. We have a lot of Assyrian refugees that come in. And so, one of the first things I have to establish because of all the various worldviews, often a lot of different experiences of trauma. And so, we have to establish cultural safety within the classroom first before we even move forward with the curriculum. One of the ways I do that is I start with myself. I start with the challenges, with my own indigeneity and the things that my family has had to encounter. Isaac, my heart really connects with you because my grandmother was adopted. She was taken away from my great grandmother, who's Cree, and she was adopted by a white family and raised as being non Indigenous. And the roads that my family has had to travel to be able to come back to their own cultural roots by sharing those experiences with my students and being vulnerable and being open, I'm setting up a cultural safety within the classroom for them to share, for them to be able to expose themselves and be vulnerable and show the beauty of their culture, but also the struggles that they have gone through to get to where they are right now in Toronto. And so being able to do that and giving them the space, creating project-based assignments that embraces their culture, and it is child-centered and driven by their questions, their curiosity, and also bringing their family in. So, by us starting off this way and creating a strong sense of community, and I have to tell you, the seven grandfather teachings that also drives my classroom and the way we are interconnecting with each other by them becoming familiar with this. I think we create such a strong community among each other that when I look at the curriculum, there isn't one thing in the curriculum that you cannot connect to Indigenous content and Indigenous ways of knowing. And I have to strongly say, what I don't know, I have to move forward with my community. And so that informs everything I do. And bringing in elders, connecting to our knowledge keepers, bringing in local artists, because this is how our children can enrich the education that they're receiving from our board.